Okay, I want to show you two tricks for working in the timeline here in this video. So, two things I want to talk about in this video are markers and key commands for loop braces, and maybe even key commands for launching from markers. So let's start with markers. Markers are these guys, right? Um, so what you do is you put a little flag down here and then you give it some text. Now, I use these while I'm working as basically like kind of idea spots. Like I'll listen to it and I'll say, okay, harm is what that says, meaning you need to thicken up the harmony here and then make the harmony stronger and then make that synth pulse come in here. The counter line starts to happen right there. And then somewhere like here's like the second big section. Kick comes in here, stuff like that. So to make one of these, all you have to really do is go to this area and control click somewhere and say add locator. So they're called locators. I call them markers sometimes. Different software calls them different stuff. Ableton calls them locators. So as soon as you create one, it automatically names it by the number last used. It's kind of so I've got one called 2, so this one already automatically came up as 3. So if I just click out of it, it's called 3. And that might be fine. I could also click on it, Command R to rename, and say this is where bass enters or something. These can be really useful while you're working for a couple of reasons. One is that we can keep track of our compositional form by doing this. That's the main thing that I use them for. And we can just kind of leave notes for ourselves. I always equate it to like when I write acoustic music, and if I'm writing on like a piece of staff paper, I like to scribble notes in the margin, and just say like, don't forget the cello has a solo here or whatever. These are kind of the same thing. Or they can be. That's one purpose that they can have. If we want to get rid of one, we just control click on it and say delete, or we can actually just hit the delete key. We can also move them just by clicking and dragging, and you'll see that some of these markers that I've put on here don't make a ton of sense. Like if I go here, harm, right? Like there's not a big harmonic event that happened there. Like I didn't add a huge harmony. I was planning on it, which is why I put that flag there. But then later I decided, let's just have this bass line kind of enter there. It's actually like a cello line. So I changed it. When I got more into the composition, I changed it, and that's totally okay. So I could either change the name of this, or I could just leave it, or whatever. It's a note to myself. One of the other things that's handy about locators is that you can launch from them. So if I just hit play here, and then, or if I just click on the locator and then I hit spacebar, I can launch from there, or I can double click on a locator and launch right from it. Right? So double clicking on one will let you launch. And remember, it looks kind of like a little playhead, right? Like this and this. And if you remember session view, when we put a clip in here, we get a little, this looks like a little playhead, which looks the same as what one of these looks like. So it's kind of a cue that it's basically a playhead. Double click right on it and we launch. Now, there's a couple other things you could do with markers. One of the things is you could set up key commands to launch from each marker. This is a cool little trick that we haven't talked about yet. And it's something we'll get into more when we start talking about using controllers and stuff. But let me just introduce it now. This is kind of a big, huge topic, but what I'm going to be talking about here for a minute is called key mapping. So what key mapping lets us do is basically create a key command for anything we want. And I find this to be really useful with markers. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to assign different keys to launch these different markers, or locators, I should say. So all I have to do is go up to this key button right here. This is super easy. So everything that just turned orange here is stuff that I can make a mapping to. Basically what that means, to put it in other words, is anything that's orange right now, I can assign a key on my keyboard to do it, to hit that thing, right? So I see my locators are orange, right? So all I have to do is click on it once, just give it one click, the thing that you want to map, and then press the thing that you want to map it to. So I'm going to press the number 1, and you see it came up over here, key 1 locator harm. So that means launch that. Now I'm going to click on harm stronger and press the second key, and this one, the synth pulse, and press 3. So I have key 1, 2, and 3 set on my first 3 locators there. Okay, so they come up in this list. If you don't see that list, that's fine. We also see the little number pop up there, right? So I'm going to hit the key button again here to turn this off. You could also hit Command K if you wanted to. Command K will go into key mode and out of key mode. Key mapping mode, I should say. Okay, so now everything looks back to normal, except, so when I press the 1, 2, or 3 button, I'm going to jump the playhead to those 3 spots. So when I press 2, you see the playhead jump to right here. So now I can hit space and launch from right there. If I'm already playing, I could go to 3 and it's going to jump there. Here's 1, 2, 3. So you see what it's doing. It's waiting for the next downbeat. This is working kind of the same way that session view works, right? Like it's waiting for that next downbeat to jump there. So you could actually perform this way if you wanted to, just with a track and a bunch of locators, and then just jump between them quickly. And you could set your, the launch command, like how long it waits. Right now it's waiting for a bar because it says bar up here. I could set it to an 1/8 note. Let's try it. So, you could actually do stuff that way. It's not a recommended way to do it. But I have seen people do live remixes this way, where they just pull in a whole track exactly as is, and then they set up a whole bunch of locators, and then just use the keys to just jump all over the place in the track. And if you're savvy, you can do some really interesting stuff that way. So it's one idea that you could do. I find it more useful for editing. Like if there's a section that I'm working on, and I just need to hit it over and over and over and over to really figure out what it's missing or something like that, I can say, okay, here it is. I can just keep going back to it over and over. So that is key mapping, and it's handy with locators when you're in arrangement view. We don't really use locators in session view in the same way, right? Because there's no timeline. So it would be hard to have a locator. We do have similar things, though, and I'll talk about those when we get there. So the one other thing I wanted to talk about in this video was some key commands for setting up a loop. So that thing I was just talking about, where I would do this, and I want to hear it over and over. And I've set up these key mappings to work. Let's turn those key mappings off first, and then we'll set it up so we just loop this section really quick with a fun little key command. So I'm going to go into my key mapping mode, which I could do with Command K, or I could just click this key button up here. Everything turns orange. So let's get rid of these 3. The easiest way to do it is just to click on it again. We see that little 1 there, notating that it's mapped to the 1 key. And I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard. And now that mapping is gone. Same thing here. I'm going to click on the 3 and get rid of it. So now those are gone. So now I can go out of key mapping mode with Command K, and I press 1, 2, 3, and nothing happens, right? Because my key commands are gone. So now those are gone. I've gotten rid of those. So what if I just want to loop this section just so I can hear it over and over and over? Really easy. Basically what I can do is I can highlight a chunk, and then I need to set the loop brace up here. So it's already set to loop, but my loop brace is huge, right? I can zoom way out, and I could go like this and find where it goes, and this is very tedious. There we go. So now I've set that to loop. That's one way to do it. Let's go a different way. I'm going to undo. Oh, it's not going to let me undo that. Let's just say that this is all outside of what I want. Okay, let's say I just want to loop that much, and I don't want to zoom all the way out and manually move that loop brace. Command L will set you up with a loop of exactly what is highlighted. This can be super valuable. So you're working on something, you're like, I just need to hear this thing 1,000 times. Command L, boom. That set my loop braces on exactly what was highlighted, right? So let's say I just wanted to loop, this one beat. Command L, boom. Right? So now that I've done that, I'm going to, with the arrow key, I can move that loop brace all over the place using arrow right and left. Right? So I could say, here's my first beat. Okay, I got it. I'm happy with it. Here's the second beat. Here's the third beat. Here's the fourth beat. Or I could say, okay, now I need to hear this whole chunk. Command L. Now I'm hearing that whole chunk. Right? So Command L is just going to snap your loop onto whatever is highlighted. And it doesn't even matter what track, right? Because the loop brace loops everything that's horizontally in that line. So super handy little trick for getting around. So that is locators, looping, loop brace,